Jody, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to you on so many levels because you're a line warrior like myself, but you're a true entrepreneur. I mean, I was looking at your jodylevy.com and you have so many things going on and wearing so many hats. And I appreciate that because I'm that type of person. I don't know if you've ever read the book. I think it's One. Is that what's called One? And they tell you to concentrate only on one thing. And I got through the first chapter. I'm like, oh, this is not me. I got to put it down.
I get that. I relate to that.
I'm like, I can't focus on just on one thing. That's just not who I am. So I think I met somebody, like a girl after my own heart. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. And
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I would love to just start out by just telling me about what you're doing. Like you have so many different things. I don't even know where to start. So I don't know what you want to concentrate on first.
Well, I'll follow your lead, but I'll tee a few things up so that we can get going. So I'm an artist and I'm professionally trained, went to college for fine art. And I like to say the best way to kind of articulate how I think about business is that it's my favorite artistic medium. I really believe in how products and brands and things in the world can be an interface to a bigger story.
Yeah.
So because of that perspective, I tend to love the process of coming up with a solution to a problem and bringing it into the world.
That's great.
It's my favorite pastime.
And that's not typical. Like artists, and I'm generalizing, so don't anybody be offended. Okay. But generally, artists who are so talented in using that side of the brain tend to not also see the business side, and that's a total generalization, but to have that knack of doing both is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's definitely rare. For me, it's probably a little bit of my spirit and a little bit of how I was conditioned. Mm-hmm. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs and my dad was always doing large scale events for the Variety Club, children's charity, and all these charitable organizations. And I loved it. And they would throw me on headset when I was really young and I'd run around kind of orchestrating things. And
awesome.
I grew up in that process of assembling stuff.
Yeah,
and it was
kind of
total producer, born a producer. But it was the balance to fine art, which was very internal and personal and expressive and introverted.
Yeah.
So I think I was always sort of pursuing these two kind of balancing introvert, extrovert dynamics.
Yeah. And just the aesthetics. And that's what you're going back to, brand and building a brand is so important because you can have the best product, but if you don't have it branded properly and marketed properly, which is all artistic and how you tell the story, right? Your company's not going anywhere.
Totally. So I like to think I call that my plot process. And for everything that I do, whether it's developing a brand or launching a brand for another company or helping somebody refine what they're doing related to an invention or product or a story of some sort or, a mission, or even if I'm helping somebody through a healing journey, it all comes down to what's the core of where we're starting from and how do we make sure that core story or communication is always expressed the same in everything that we do. It's the difference between, just doing something at the surface versus being able to manage the micro details, which sets something apart. And that's how I think about business.
That's great. I mean, that is a special way of kind of just boiling it down and simplifying it, right? And then making sure that gets told. So which is the business that you spend the most time with?
So right now I have come on as a partner and the global director and the chief executive officer of Summit, which is a community of 50,000 people around the world that all kind of have this entrepreneurial spirit in common. It's a lot of the makers, the more avant-garde investors, the people that have ideas and are bringing them into the world. And Summit has been the platform for the past 14 years where people kind of support one another and 2 parts or 10 parts to a whole come together and then make something amazing.
Right.
I've been part of the community for a long time. And during the pandemic, I jumped in. It was really an opportunity to refine who we are and what we're doing and what our legacy will be moving forward, and really think about how to bring our people around the world together to do even more meaningful things.
That's awesome. That's great that you got involved with that organization and trying to take that to the next level. And then so how did you get involved? You must have been already an entrepreneur and started other companies before getting involved with them.
Yes. So I started my first company when I was 21 and it was an experience design firm, the world's first actually, early on, really thinking about how multisensory communications can tell stories. So kind of the concept of like Montessori learning, right? People learn from different sensory inputs. And when we design an immersive installation or a theatrical experience, or even like a brand and all of the expressions of a brand in a way that stimulates as many senses as possible, it forms memory. And when we can form a positive memory, people tend to be able to distill the story and then share it. So I did that for a long time.
So you graduated from college or during college? Like, when did you do that?
I graduated from the Art Institute of Chicago after a 5-year, adventure around the world studying art. And honestly, my 5 years in college was the only time in my life that I really have never made art. Like I've been making huge scale paintings and drawings and immersive installations my whole life. And then I was like, in art school and got grants and traveled the world. And I finished school sort of. I think I got a diploma 4 years later because I needed it to teach an art class or an experience design class at a college somewhere.
So you were like working and doing things the entire time. You weren't a typical college student where you were
totally.
Right. Okay, cool. And then see, that was just like a natural extension of what you were kind of already doing. It wasn't like, hey, I graduated, I'm going to start a company.
Yeah, well, it was very serendipitous. Like I kind of, surrendered to the flow of life and an opportunity came up and I was creating a lot of like installations that were telling stories about sustainability and the ecology of our planet.
Right.
And it was not something that most people in America were talking about.
Right.
And so I got very involved with Global Green USA and some of the bigger organizations and 501c3s that were doing things to try to make people aware of what was going on our planet. Now we're more aware, but like we were behind and we still are behind in the lifestyle choices that need to make us more responsible citizens.
Right.
To protect the world that we live in.
Yes, of course.
And then from there, I was like, okay, well, if I want to make real change, I need to go into the belly of the beast. And so I had the opportunity to get into the automotive industry. So my design firm was launching all of the non-traditional fuel technology, non-traditional mobility, like every hybrid vehicle, fuel cell technology, hydrogen platforms, battery technology. We were involved with like Toyota and Lexus and Ford and GM, Tesla, Fisker.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really exciting. And it was.
And how did you get those leads? I mean, you're making it sound so easy, but I'm sure it wasn't as easy as that.
I was one of 4 founding members, and 2 of the other members had come from the automotive industry and more traditional like marketing and PR. Okay. So we brought these 2 worlds together of thinking about how you tell stories with large scale animated architecture and projection mapping and holograms and interactive interfaces where we would build these custom art pieces or sculptures that you could touch or interact with, and it would transform huge environments. And it was early, it was like 2001. So we were aggregating content from like SMS photos taken on flip phones,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was great. It was like boot camp for business because we were working with Fortune 50 companies and C-suite executives.
That's amazing. And so from there, did you left and start another company or started another company at the same time? What happened after that?
Yeah, so there was lots of different like adventures and overlaps. I was doing a lot of installations at like the Museum of Modern Art and Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, and like a lot of interactive experiences at Coachella and different festivals. That was like the balance to the other work. And I was in New York producing a show on Broadway.
Oh my gosh, you amaze me.
And I was at a surprise birthday party. And I was very, invested in this communication around sustainability and the things that we can change in our day-to-day lives to keep our planet and the people on our planet healthy. So I had this hilarious encounter with Harlan Berger, who is my co-founder in a company called Watermelon Water. We're on the roof of a building and somebody came up and gifted him these couple bottles of like cold pressed watermelon juice. And I'm like, what is this? Like, this is your birthday present? What is this? And Mike, the guy who handed it to him, said, happy birthday, man. I hope all your dreams come true. And at that point, Harlan shared with me this crazy fact that we're not sure why he knew, that there were 800 million pounds of unused watermelons in America every year, which represents an incredible amount of money and energy and work, etc. And I was fascinated by this. And at first I was like, oh, well, watermelons can make ethanol, right? Like, let's fly rocket ships on watermelon ethanol naturally. So I went to Colombia and I was talking to all of these vertical farming and ethanol experts. And it was there that they kind of informed me that watermelons are low glycemic and can't make fuel. And then in my belief that brands can be interfaces to bigger, more important messages, Harlan and I started talking and I was like, we could create a beverage, which is what he really wanted to do, that has all these things that are good for people, make it super clean, etc. But we could really use it as a way to tell stories about food waste, because this is a huge issue. And the amount of food waste in every part of our food system is something that really needs to be talked about. And it directly coincides with food as a social justice issue and having clean food accessible to everybody in our country and really everywhere. So that was the inception point for my first CPG product in the beverage space. I have two beverage companies. And then I now am involved in quite a few clean food, supplement, beauty, psychedelic brands, many of which are my own.
That's amazing. So, so you have, because I was looking at your portfolio, which is impressive. So you're not just an investor. Are you also acting as the CEO of each of these?
So Watermelon Water, we sold to this incredible company in the Dominican Republic that actually grows their melons, makes watermelon water, and does everything for that company. So that was late last year, around the same time that I got involved with Summit, actually the same day. I know, funny how the world works, right?
Yes.
And then I have a mezcal company called Gem and Bolt, which Gem and Bolt is this amazing mezcal that's distilled with Damiana, which is a really potent aphrodisiac. Oh, wow. So it's kind of been known as a cure-all from ancient times. But our mezcal is super clean. It's grown all biodynamically. It's processed by these incredible masters in Oaxaca, Mexico. So that's a business that, I'm on the board of and I support. But at this point, it's got its wings and it's all over the world and it's kind of flying on its own.
Okay. So you're not running day-to-day operations of that?
No. So businesses that I'm running right now, besides Summit, which gets almost all of me, are the products that are really dear to my heart. So all through most of the journey that I just told you about, I went undiagnosed with Lyme disease for 18 years. And
which is amazing that you could, because I have Lyme and it's debilitating and you've done so much having all that, which is amazing.
It was my survival. Nobody could figure out what was wrong. Yeah. And everyone thought I was nuts. And people were just stop working so hard, stop dancing so long,
stressing yourself out,
all of it. And I was okay, yeah, got it. But I sleep 8 hours a day and I eat super clean and something's not right.
Felt well, how much you could have accomplished? If you accomplish that much not feeling well, I always say that to myself. I'm I get a lot done, but can you imagine how much more I get done if I actually felt well? Or maybe I do it with a bigger smile instead of drudging through the day.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you did all of this while you were sick. And
then when I figured it out, it took me 4 years. So I was basically you can tell the type of personality I am. And I was I am going to CEO my wellness. Forget all these other opinions. Forget all these reports. Forget all this stuff. It's noise. Nobody's giving me answers. I know how to solve things. I know how to create things that have never been created before. I'm going to get myself better so that I can get anybody else that wants to get better. So I have 3 businesses that are separate under the umbrella of Biotoxic RX.
Which I love, yeah.
Thanks. The first one is called The Milk Cleanse, which absolutely saved my life. So in this wacky journey where I was having conference calls and running my businesses from the coat closets in my doctor's offices with IV bags in my arm that nobody could see, right?
Right.
For years, I finally, after trying absolutely everything across the planet, discovered this amazing woman named Dr. Linda Lancaster, who put me on an adapted Ayurvedic milk mono diet with very specific supplements that you take every 2 hours. And I was rolling my eyes, didn't believe it, like so snobby about the whole thing. Carried it around in my little computer bag for probably 8 months before I actually did it. Finally got to the point where I felt so like at the end of my rope.
Mm-hmm. I know that feeling.
That my sister was like, why don't you do that weird milk thing? It's like, it's not going to hurt you. Just drink goat milk for eight days. Let's see what happens. You literally try everything else. Everything else you try is way more invasive.
Yeah, totally. I'm the same way.
Right? And so totally wacky. So I did it. And it was crazy. Like I would cycle through symptoms and pain and light sensitivity and all these weird things. On day 6, like I had this wild like rush clearing from my brain. What? My vision got super clear.
So within 6 days.
On day 8, I was like, I climbed a mountain in Colorado with my sister.
Okay, I knew that
without any pain. And I was like, oh my God. Like she looked at me and she's like, I haven't seen you in years. Like we were dancing and I wasn't like, trying to like hide my like weird stuff. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, I feel good, but like now what? How long is this going to last? Yeah. And it lasted for ever, but in 4 months, I was still great. And I was like, okay, I think I could jump back in and run one of my businesses. So I jumped back into Watermelon Water, my main beverage business and what I was focused on full time. And for 2.5 years, I like ran the business, fixed a bunch of operational stuff. I went as hard as anyone could possibly go. And I felt amazing.
That's amazing. You never crashed.
I have never crashed. That was in 2016.
Wow.
So
this is your own little like concoction. And then you kind of went to her and said, let's make a business out of this, or what, or did she already have a business out of it?
So Linda's a very well-known doctor between New Mexico and New York. And she's been using the milk cleanse for 40 years. She's had thousands of people use it. And not just for Lyme. I mean, people use it for all kinds of things. Like it is the most incredible gut reset, like full body reset, parasite cleanse. People use it for hormone balancing. Basically, when you go on only milk, you can also drink coffee and water.
So that's all you have for 8 days. That's it.
Mm-hmm. But you can drink as much as you want. But people are so used to cleanses being like deprivation and so challenging. It's not. It's like the perfect balance of protein, fat, and carbs. Mm-hmm. And for most of us that have been in like the healing space, it's more carbs than we're used to. So it's kind of like, it makes you feel amazing.
Yeah.
Almost everybody on day 8 asks the question, can I just stay on milk? Like, I feel so good. Can I just stay on milk? And there is a phase 2. So you take supplements for another 3 weeks afterward with regular clean food diet. It's incredible. It's had like profound effects on so many people.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then there's another business that's sort of connected to it. So one of the things that we have discovered, we being sort of the underground, wellness practitioners that, and I'm not a practitioner, but that like treat a lot of patients that have mold toxicity and viruses and, weird kind of invisible diseases, is that the limbic system can loop in patterns.
Yeah. It stays like it's a PTSD type of thing. Yeah.
Yes. So along the journey, I was like better. My brain was back. My memory was back. My energy was back, but I was still having pain in my lower back. And I was like, somebody put something in me or cut me open or cut me in half. I don't care what. And it was around the time that like this awareness around how the limbic looping works related to symptoms. So I very serendipitously met Lisa Wimberger, who is the inventor of a modality called neurosculpting. Mm-hmm. And I was living in Denver. I was running one of my businesses. My sister was about to have twins. Like I was just like hanging in Denver. And she's in Denver and she has the Neurosculpting Institute in Denver. So I went to see her for the first time. I think it was like Halloween. I was in a hand crocheted white unicorn onesie. Okay. And like, she burst out laughing and I burst out laughing. And we were just like ancient friends reuniting, right? And we did 4 sessions and my pain was gone.
Wow.
Like gone.
Yeah.
So I sat down and I outlined every symptom physical, emotional, psychological, mental, that anybody that I know who's been through chronic illness has suffered from. She and I built an iPhone app, and there's actually a web app version for people that don't have the iPhone called Neuropraxis. And the first library that's up is for biotoxicity, which, includes like Lyme and mold and all the things that go with it, parasites, et cetera. Right now, in this coming out of this crazy kind of pandemic pause and experience, it's been really amazing for a lot of people that have been recovering from COVID or the fears around COVID.
Yep.
And we have all these users around the world that are like using Neuropraxis. And we have 4 new libraries coming out that are like general fear and anxiety. We have a Neuropraxis for peak performance. Wow. We have a Neuropraxis for entrepreneurs coming.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the entrepreneur thing. Like, how are you managing this all? So for people who are listening, who have one company and you have multiple companies, how are you managing the different boxes? The different hats. Like, let's talk like nitty gritty. Are you using paper? Are you using an app? Like, how are you keeping yourself?
So I'm like super old school. And because of my memory stuff over the years, I've created sort of these like weird systems for myself because I have a weird relationship to time. I don't like being late, which has sort of gone out the window at this point because I'm doing too much. But I keep one email open on the left side of my computer all the time. And it is like a catch-all. And I am in that email all day long. And I prioritize and reprioritize all day long. But there's something that I do ahead of that that's really important. So first of all, I have gotten really real with myself about what I'm bad at.
Right.
So I hire for the things that I am not good or not efficient at.
Right. But you make it sound easy. But I think
the hiring part
is hard, right? Finding the right person, not feeling like
it's impossible.
Advantage of, like, because you try to like interview somebody and they want to charge so much money, and then you hire them and they don't produce the results that you think that they were going to produce. It just this vicious cycle. Then you're like, wait, I'll just do it myself. It just. So how are you finding like good people, or how are you finding those people?
It's really the hardest thing. I like to experiment with people. I'm not afraid to try things. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm very open about that with people, especially with the early stage stuff, which tends to be more like passion-driven partners and people that really care about what we're building. I am not afraid to take risks, giving people an opportunity if they get excited about something. I typically will do so with like a light consulting commitment just to see how we flow together. I'm also I'm very organized and detailed, but in a very nonlinear way. So I'm aware that my way of doing things is not for everybody. So part of it's also for them to really be able to like see what it's like to kind of flow with me.
Yeah.
But there's something else that I do that I think is really important. So I know at all times how much of my time is being spent on my work and on specific parts of my work. So I have this thing where I literally will take a piece of paper and I'll write all of the parts of my life. So it'll include like work, and then, I kind of organize it by the businesses that I'm involved with. Advisory board stuff, time for fitness, my meal prep, my time with my family, my time with my friends, my time for travel, all the things that are important to me. And I'll oftentimes, out of 100% of my waking time, know how much I'm spending on each. And so I'll usually do like a now, and I try to be honest with myself. Like a lot of times where I want things to be and where they actually are out of sync. Like sometimes I want, my time related to music and dance and intimacy to be a lot higher than what my percentage of work actually is.
Right.
And then I'll do like, okay, so in September 2021, what do I want it to be? Work right now is at 92%, and all these other things fill that other 7%. I kind of need work to be at 70% so that I can have a good balance. And I know it sounds so like analog and silly, but having an understanding of what I'm committing to on how I spend my time and not giving up the things that are important, like on the other side of my life, keeps me sane and focused and feeling like really good about the hard stuff. Because running businesses and building businesses and hiring and firing and all the things, it's hard. It's as hard as it gets.
Right. And then so because your email is open all the time, do you feel like you're just being reactionary, or how do you make sure you're getting things done that need to get done? Like, do you say, okay, today I'm going to make sure I address these 3 things, or, because I do that. And then the next thing you know, it's been the whole day and I've just been answering emails.
Yeah. So I don't like Slack. I don't like a lot of the project management tools that my teams use. I like having text and email. And I kind of have like boundaries around both. Like text for kind of quick design, creative stuff. Or, hey, there's an email I need you to look at. And I like everything in my inbox.
Yeah. Inbox is my to-do list.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot. And I like my eyes on a lot of things because I'm interested in the details of stuff, because I think that's what really differentiates. And I think that like I really trust my teams to do their work, and I trust them to pull me into stuff when they need me.
Mm-hmm.
So I wake up early and I give myself like 2 hours early morning before my phone starts ringing and like everything happens, where I try to get through my email.
Yeah.
So everybody loads me up at night and knows that I'm going to prioritize based on, if it's investment stuff or investor stuff, it comes first. If I'm closing a deal, it comes first. If there's creative that needs to be reviewed for marketing, it's coming, but it might take me a couple days.
Now, do you have somebody who's like your right-hand person that helps you with all the company, like all your companies?
Mm-mm.
No,
but I should.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm just, you amaze me, because I'm just like sitting like thinking about my problems, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how does she do you have I know you said you don't like Slack or any of those systems, but you said some of your teams are using them. So does that mean that each company or each team has a different version, or you tried to make everybody on the same one?
No, everything's totally separate.
So you just literally one could be on Asana, one could be on Slack, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, most everybody is using the old school stuff.
Yeah.
With exception to the bigger businesses like Watermelon Water and all of the summit businesses are obviously a lot more connected, a lot bigger, and we're building more global in scale. So things are bigger, right? They scale.
Right.
I just tend to forget to look at stuff. So everyone knows that, like, even, if I have too many Google links, I'm just like, that's the place where I get overwhelmed. Where I'm like, I don't know where to find the links. Like my organizational system on like digital files is great. But when it comes to me having I need a map, and then I need a map for the map.
Yeah, no, totally. What would you recommend, or what advice would you give to anyone who's listening who is an entrepreneur or wants to be an entrepreneur, trying to start a company, or wants to make it to the top of their corporation that they're at? What kind of advice would you give them?
I think that there's a couple things that are really important. So first of all, if I don't love the process of what I'm doing, for me, it's not worth doing. So I have something in mind of where we're going as a team or as a business or for myself, like if there's a goalpost I want to hit, so to speak. But it's really about enjoying the moments that we're in it. It's not always easy, but I still enjoy the hard, right? As long as I'm like learning or growing and like quenching that kind of constantly curious thing in me, I'm happy. So I feel like the place where people sometimes can't find their joy and can't find the inspiration to like wake up every day and like love what they're doing is when they're not loving the process. I think that if somebody doesn't have a system where they know how to manage their time and they're feeling overwhelmed and underwater all the time, that's not fun. And so I think people should only take on to the point of madness, so to speak, that they can maintain that balance and feel really excited and happy. And I think the key to that is what I said before, which is know what you're bad at. Because you know what you're bad at and you focus. Like people sometimes make the mistake where they try to hire for people that do what they already do.
Yeah. And you're like, why? You're already doing that.
Yeah. Hire for the thing that someone's going to do better than you. And like let them help you.
Right. No, it's true. This has been amazing. Thank you so much. I wish you the best with all of I feel like we have to have you back on and dissect like your investments and talk about that whole aspect too. There's so many different things to talk to you about. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you think last minute words, or you think we got it covered?
I think we're covered. And thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.